Hello, everyone. Digress here. Part 3 of the SWOT analysis for existing and startup ventures, where we're going to focus on opportunities and threats, relate it back to strengths and weaknesses, and how we're doing all of our different types of conclusions and recommendations. So let's take a look. We're dealing with opportunities and threats. And why do we want to do this? Because these are the opportunities to close gaps. If you listen to the last video, it was described about there would be gaps when you do your strengths weaknesses assessment, and opportunities for moving forward. And then there's also looking for threats to your existing situation that might actually make you step back, or for your plans moving ahead. All of these tend to be external to the venture. So what you can do is you can identify the opportunity and you can adopt it, or you can see a threat and you can manage it. And these all then have implications for your internal strengths and weaknesses, because if you want to improve something, you want to close a gap, you got to look outside the organization for different possibilities, whether they be models for how to do it, and then you can adopt that approach. So you have to just go out and do some learning, or a technology, or whatever it might be. So I'll give an example that was running in the last one. So I was talking about how in our my business we're adding in transformational retreats, and that a landing page that really sizzles, that really connects to someone who's making a decision has to be a 10. We have to totally nail that thing. And currently I'd say we're doing those at about a 6. If not even worse. And that means there's a gap of 4 or more. So that's a conclusion that I have drawn inside of here. And there's also a conclusion with the opportunities or threats that there's an opportunity to connect with a supplier of knowledge called Wanderlust Entrepreneurs. They're a group that actually helps people do these retreats. And they have a course called Retreats Made Easy. I found this through intentionally looking for a solution for this particular issue. And inside this, they have how to do what I would call a 10 landing page. And then the recommendation then that I would make to myself or me and my business partner is that we take the course. It costs about $1,000 right now. 6 months it'll take about to finish it. We need to allocate one person to do this, so that'll be some of their time. It's like about 4 to 5 hours a week. And if I were making this recommendation to a client, I could put in the sign-up instructions, and of course I'd want the justification why this is a good option and why I would be recommending this in order to be able to close that gap. And so that's the critical links here. We draw conclusions, then we search for possibilities for closing the gap, then we make recommendations about what is priority. This is a priority because it's a 10 and you have it at a 6, or that's a conclusion that we have, and then make a recommendation that we want to be moving forward on this. So what are the different areas might provide opportunity or threat? There's actually good solid theory on this and trying to understand what provides opportunities and threats external to the organization that can help us move forward or could actually potentially move us backward, therefore being a threat. They really fall into 2 different categories. There's the micro or industry environment, and there's the macro environment. All of this is coming out of a classic strategy. And again, I spent many, many years doing this sort of work. And the micro industry environment includes customers, which is actually part of the business model canvas. Competitors, which is not, but it's an important component because it links to the unique value proposition, unique relative to competitors or substitutes and alternatives. Suppliers, people who can supply things. So that last example I gave is a supplier of some knowledge. And key partners, people we might make alliances with, connect with, and so on. So you'd want to be able to look at all of those in a particular way, because each of those could be opportunities and or threats. Additionally, we want to look at the macro environment. Now, the macro environment is bigger than the micro or macro or the industry environment, which of course that makes sense. And it applies across industries. Typically when we're doing the micro or industry environment, it specifically is about your industry, where the macro environment might go across industries. And there's really 6 different areas that have proven over time to be potential sources of opportunities and threats. Political trends, and these are all about trends. Political trends, economic trends, sociocultural trends, technological trends, legal trends, and natural environmental trends. Each of these different areas provides possibility for opportunities and threats that we'd want to be able to recognize and see. So political speaks for itself, what's happening in politics. Economics, what are the trends related to the economy, locally, regionally, nationally, globally. Sociocultural trends are things around our culture and things that are changing in our society. Technology is technology, and the tools that we use to get our work done. Legal might be legal things that are changing, laws that are changing in the natural environment. Is important because there are a variety of things that are shifting and changing. And interestingly, back when I first learned this, that wasn't part of this analysis, and now it is because of the way that things are going with our natural environment. So how does this work out? Well, what you do is while you're doing your internal analysis, your initial internal analysis, you want to do a scan of all of these. So part of your team wants to be looking at what's going on in the external environment. And in fact, one of the skills that strategic leaders have is the ability to continuously scan the environment for things that might be raising flags as potential opportunities and threats. You're searching for obvious opportunities or threats. And so you want to get that initial scan underway right away, doing primary and secondary research. So you can be using the web, you can be talking to people, obviously talking to your client if you have a client, talking to people who are experts, etc. Then, once you have your conclusions drawn about the different gaps inside the SWOT analysis, or inside your SW analysis, then you want to do an intentional search. So you've done this scan, you've seen some things, and then you want to do an intentional search for gap closing opportunities and threats that might impede your progress. And so you do the scan, you're doing that simultaneously with the internal analysis, and then once you've drawn conclusions about those, you're going to go out and see these different possible opportunities and threats and draw those in and conclude that those might be things that could help close the gap, and ultimately you'll make recommendations about which of those should be taken advantage of. And the last thing I'll say is that something out there in the external environment can be both an opportunity and a threat simultaneously. So for example, a legal change could be coming down the road. You notice this, that's a thing. And if the organization takes steps to comply with that legal things before other people do, then that might become an opportunity. A lot of vehicle manufacturers, for example, look at gas mileage legal changes coming down the road, and what they do is they start redesigning their engines for better gas mileage ahead of the legal requirement coming, and so that they can get out ahead of it. And so that's an opportunity for them getting ahead. If they didn't do anything, they could see it as a threat, and what they might try to do is they might try to lobby Congress not to change the law, or so they could try to stop that law from happening. It also could be with new technology. New technology could be a threat if you don't do anything, or you stay with your old technology, or you don't adapt your old technology to be as good as the new technology, or you could switch and take advantage of that new technology to help you do something. And the final example I'll give is a competitor. A competitor could be obviously a threat that seems like a threat, but also a competitor can often be someone that you might somehow ally with. Perhaps you could find a way to work with them in a legal way that allows you to actually both succeed. We do that, in the small business world. Lots of people might recommend each other, even if you're in the same space. Particularly if you get too busy, then you want to have other people who are technically competitors, but you might want to have other people you could recommend. All right, that's the opportunities and threats component of SWOT, and combining that with video 2 and 1, you should be able to, at this point, be able to conduct a SWOT analysis for a client or a venture that you're creating. Good luck, and ask us questions if you've got them.